Hey y'all, welcome back to another video. I'm really enjoying these last days of spring, going around doing animal chores and taking you along this morning. Beautiful June 20th, last day of spring before we get into summer, and excited to show you all the animals, how they're doing. Hungry pigs growing up fast. They are always ready for me in the morning. Something I've been finding interesting is, in addition to kitchen scraps and scraps out of the garden, they seem to really like the same types of tree fodder that we've been feeding the ruminants, particularly the willow. I've been bringing them willow cuttings and they just chow down on it, and it's fun to see. This paddock is getting pretty heavily impacted and getting ready to move them next week. I've talked a lot about transitioning this woodland into silvopasture, and that process has been moving along. We've been rotating pigs through here for the last 3 years since we started the farm, and early on, I've documented this, the entire understory was essentially invasive species, multiflora rose, oriental bittersweet, Japanese privet, and things that are native that we don't want around so much, poison ivy. And what we've seen through the pigs' impact is they've essentially completely eradicated all of those species except for the privet. It's woody and deeply rooted, and they'll dig up little sprouts, but not so much the established ones. We also see microstegium, Japanese stilt grass, continuing. You can see in this next paddock they're going into, which they'll tear up, but the seed bank will proliferate. And my observation with the stilt grass is it thrives depending on really the kind of ecological context, and so it likes shade and seems to thrive on disturbance. But anyways, the longer term or more intensive version of thinning this out and establishing grasses for our other livestock enterprises is going to be moving along this fall. Any of you who've dealt with forestry work know that a lot of this type of work is not cheap, but we've received funding recently to go ahead and finish the mechanical work of thinning out the tree canopy. We're going to bring a forestry mulcher in here and reduce the canopy by about another 50% of what remains, leaving the big, nice single stem trees. And then we're going to be seeding pasture grasses into there, and my suspicion is by next spring, around April, when those seeds are really germinating and coming up, this space is going to look entirely different, and we'll be able to bring it into the rotation with the ruminants in particular, and perhaps some of the poultry as well. The flurd is really thriving. We introduced the cows to the sheep a few weeks ago, and we've weaned the lambs off of their mothers, moving them daily. their impact as a collective group and with the herd or the flock size we have with the sheep has been really beautiful to see. It's the first time I think that we're adequately stocked to keep up with the grass, and they're entering paddocks daily that are just lush with diverse grasses, forbs, legumes. It's been a joy. And so they're ready to move. The introduction of bringing the cows in with the sheep was really seamless. There was no bullying. I think them being outnumbered and young animals helped with that. And they're getting along great. This is one of my favorite moments of the day, each morning, coming out here and just watching them hit the new grass. This spring we bought a flail mower to replace the bush hog, because to date we've had to clip grass to keep up with it, and doing so at a timing to mimic a grazing pattern, cutting at the ideal height and growth stage for recovery. But it's been really amazing to see the difference where the flail mower, when set to the right speed and the right PTO speed, the way it just chops up really fine the grass, not leaving ruts. What we saw with the bush hog is, it's a bit of a cheap old bush hog, and it would spray the debris into the wheel ruts and create these lines of slowly decomposing and sometimes even anaerobic organic matter that would stunt growth significantly and really chop the grass in a way that seemed to stunt it. But the flail mower has left this really nice, even sward that's recovering quickly. This was just cut a little over 2 weeks ago. And I also really like the ability to adjust the height up and down to achieve different targets. I've done some mowing just clipping seed heads, but leaving all of the foliar growth. So the cows and sheep are about to come and rotate here around the bottom of Northfield before heading back over to Nut, where the turkeys have been all spring. Black walnut that we're grazing the turkeys out here in Nutfield, and they're getting processed on Tuesday. That'll be the 23rd. So this is their last move today, and happy with the size. I love raising the turkeys. They're just such fun, curious, interesting animals, and feels really good to finally get so much fertility down out here in Nutfield, where our production for the first 2 years wasn't really at a scale that made sense to bring poultry out here. The nut savanna is developing. I don't know how well it's coming through, but English walnuts, black walnuts, some of which are taller than me now, pecans, hickories, and in our little seedling nursery we've been replacing some that didn't make it with chestnuts. So just been loving coming out here in the morning light coming over the mountain, just silhouetting the emerging nut trees out here. Black walnut that we're grazing the turkeys out here in Nutfield, and they're getting processed on Tuesday. That'll be the 23rd. So this is their last move today, and happy with the size. I love raising the turkeys. They're just such fun, curious, interesting animals, and feels really good to finally get so much fertility down out here in Nutfield, where our production for the first 2 years wasn't really at a scale that made sense to bring poultry out here. The nut savanna is developing. I don't know how well it's coming through, but English walnuts, black walnuts, some of which are taller than me now, pecans, hickories, and in our little seedling nursery we've been replacing some that didn't make it with chestnuts. So just been loving coming out here in the morning light coming over the mountain, just silhouetting the emerging nut trees out here. Finally, the layers coming out here to open up their doors. I have it set to manual open and it closes on a timer, but I like being in control of when they leave. They kind of barrel out at first because they're eager. It's a bit stressful for hungry birds to be looking at you through the fence as you're approaching with feed, but we have solved the issues of them getting out that I mentioned in the last video. In addition to stapling the low spots and uneven terrain so they can't slip under, we threw on a hotter energizer at the recommendation of another egg farmer, and that seems to have worked like a charm. We haven't had a single escapee in over 5 weeks, so they're feeling settled in and roaming through the tall horseweed out here to find their food. Just starting to lay, still early. Found that by our midday collection around 11:30 noon, they've laid about 80 to 90%. We're getting off of 300 layers an average of around 270 eggs per day, which we're quite happy with. And yeah, it's been a joy to integrate the layers into the farm. We've got them out in what we call far field, and I'm moving them a bit less frequently than I would around the rest of the farm. This field has not received any fertility of any kind, to our knowledge, for since anyone can remember, previous landowner included, and perhaps has never received this kind of poultry related fertility. So I'm moving them twice a week to really impact the ground a bit heavier, lay down more manure, and I'm following them with a mix of perennial rye and red clover. We've seen out here just a totally different nature in the grass growth. This little cluster is pretty good representation. Narrow, light green foliar growth and plants that are wanting to go to seed rapidly, in extreme juxtaposition to the rest of our pastures that have received years now of broiler and turkey manure and timed grazing. We see a lot of horseweed and goldenrod and other unpalatable forbs out here, but I feel confident that in just a year's time this pasture is going to be transformed much in the way that Nutfield has been. When we arrived at the farm, Northfield was in the best shape. I think had been managed with cattle and mowed in a way that did not promote different types of noxious weeds and unpalatable forbs. Nutfield, when we got here, was severely overgrown, primarily with forbs. It was transitioning from pasture into somewhat of the next stage of succession. There's a lot of small saplings and just hadn't been kept up with the same. But now it's thick with lush, diverse forage and I'm seeing the same thing in the future, the near future, out here for Farfield. And it's all made possible really because of the poultry. Just a quick update on the Eggmobile. I've been extremely happy with the functionality of our design. I come in and check daily to make sure all the perch poppers are down so they can go in and lay eggs, but totally adequately spaced for their roosting. We only have to enter really at the end of day at final collection to close these up, but it's holding up great. So that's it for today's video, just showing you around on the morning of my weekend animal chores. I can do all of the servicing, moving, feeding for all the animals on the farm this year, including when we have broilers, in about an hour. We do midday feedings and checks as well, but the primary workload is in the morning. So one person in about 1 hour can move the flurd, move and service 300 layers in the Eggmobile, about 100 turkeys, 300 broilers, feed the pigs, and we're off to the races with harvest or other tasks around the farm thereafter. It's fun to update as things continue to progress and change and evolve at Wild East. It's been so much fun documenting these first years of the farm and going back and seeing some of my first videos and my own thinking changing and switching from, a vision that was mostly up here and putting it on the ground into a place now where we get to live in and observe what's happening and how this dynamic system continues to change and evolve day by day. Thanks for watching another video. Please make sure to like, leave a comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.